A complex number system, and the complex number system has i's involved. Now, where I comes from is right here. So if we have the square root of negative 27. Now, most of you are going to look at that and say, well, you can't do it because there's a negative, right? It's something we've been pushed in your head since 7th grade.
Exactly.
You can do it. It just goes into the complex number system. It starts to get the I value. Now, what happens here is the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to factor out the I. Anytime you square root a negative number, I comes out. So once again, anytime you square root a negative number, an I will come out. Okay? And then we're going to do it like we did last year, and you guys have done an algebra for all the years. We're going to simplify this radical by finding numbers that multiply together to be 27 and factoring them down to their roots. So underneath our square root, we're going to have a 3 times 3 times 3. You're going to find your pairs, so we have a pair of 3's. Remember, as soon as you find a pair, nope, the negative's right here. Okay, so as soon as you bring out I, the negative's gone. And then you have a pair of 3's, you bring out one of the 3's, and you're left with that as your solution, right there. Okay, questions so far? So I comes when you square root negative numbers. That's where I comes from. Now we're going to be doing a lot of stuff other than just square rooting negative numbers with I today. We're going to learn how to do math with I a little bit. We're going to learn how to do all kinds of crazy stuff. But until we can get to that point, we're going to do this. Okay, so what about if we had square root of negative 216? First thing I'd do is I'd take out an I. And then we're going to factor 216. Daxton mask. Yep. So 108 and 2. 54 and 2. 27 and 2. 9 and 3. 3 and 3. So underneath our square root, we're going to have an I out front. Underneath it, we're going to have 3 2's and 3 3's. Okay, Daxton, what do we do next?
You pairs.
Okay, do we have any pairs here?
1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so the pairs. Now, we grab one number from each pair and we bring it out. So we grab a 2, we bring it out. We grab a 3 and we bring it out. And then we have an I still out there with a 2 times 3 left over underneath, which is going to give us 6i square root of 6. Nope, that's your answer. That's simplified. Here, I want you guys to try one on your own. The square root of negative 32. Factor that one down. Yeah, Sophie, will you turn on that air conditioner? Hit on the mode. Okay, so you guys should have got to here. After factoring out the I and then getting all the 2's, We end up with 5 2s, right? Okay, so we're going to bring out, there's a pair, there's a pair, so we're going to bring out one number from each pair. So on the outside, we're going to have 2 times 2 with an I, and then square root of 2, which gives us 4I. Square root of 2 is your solution. Who got that right? Raise your hand. Good. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is how to multiply using I. So that's where I comes from. I comes from square root into negative. Okay, so now we understand where I comes from. Now we're going to understand how to do mathematical properties with I. So the first thing we're going to do is if we had negative 8I times 3I. Negative 8I times 3I. Which is going to give us negative 24I squared. Just like x times x is x squared, I times I is I squared. Why is it positive 24, Tyson? It is, but why? Why is the answer positive 24? Tell me. Where are you getting the other negative from? Okay, I squared equals what? So because I squared equals negative 1, negative 24 times a negative 1 is positive 24. I squared equals negative 1. Okay, you never leave an I squared a part of the problem. I squared leaves. All right, what about if we had this? 3I times 4I.
That would be I.
No.
I squared, 12.
12I squared, which leaves us 12 times a negative 1 or negative 12.
See, that's what I said.
If it's like this, yes. Okay, hey, focus. We're going to get a lot more into this. We're not even diving very deep yet. Okay? So, if we have this is one of my favorite ones to do because it kind of shows everything we've learned so far. A problem like that. So we have a square root of negative 6 times the square root of negative 15. Anytime you have the square root of a negative, you should immediately bring I out. A lot of times. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to bring an I out. After that, we can multiply. Now, if you remember all the way back to beginning algebra, we talked about multiplying radicals. You multiply what's on the outside together and what's on the inside together. So this is going to be simplified to I squared, I times I is I squared, square root of 90. 6 times 15 is 90. Okay, but stop just for a second. First off, you have a radical. You should always look to do what with a radical? Simplify it, right? Break it down. So everyone go through real quick and break down that 90. Break it down, see if we get any pairs. What's our pair? 3. So we have 3's with a 5 and 2 left over, right? So on the outside, we're going to have 3I squared, square root of 10. What does I squared become? So that becomes a negative 3, square root of 10 is our solution. Okay, I'm going to let you guys try this one on your own. Negative square root of 2, oh, wrong way. Square root of negative 20 times square root of negative 10. Go for it. How far into this lesson should I go, Cole? I'm only into it. 2 examples. And there's 7. What do you think? 3 today? 3, maybe
Yeah,
4?
3 sounds like a solid number.
I could do 4. And then we'll save the hard stuff for next time. You done?
That's cat.
You guys should have got I squared square root of 200.
I got there. Let's go. I got the answer. Let's go. It's literally. How is it talking
Daxton,
to you?
I could see it.
I didn't think you could. Sorry, I apologize.
You don't need to apologize to me.
Sorry, I apologize. Okay, we're moving on. Right?
He was trying so hard to hide it, but his back wasn't all the way turned to me. He was doing it right at max.
It was my team.
No. No, it wasn't.
My bad.
Okay, here we go. Okay, 200 factors down, 102, 50 and 2, 25 and 2, 5 and 5. Do we have pairs? Pair of 5s and a pair of 2s. So on the outside, we're going to have 10 I squared square root of 2, or negative 10 square root of 2 is your solution. Who got it? Okay, we need to go on. You guys ready? I squared becomes a negative 1. So that's 10 times a negative 1. Alright, now we got to go into this other stuff, and I'm going to try to find problems, because I know Alex asked you this, and I'm going to do it right now. Okay, there's some. I can have any exponent above it. For example, we already know these, so don't write these down. I to the 1 is I squared is negative 1, I cubed is negative I, and I to the 4th is 1, right? Those 4 you're going to have to memorize, because you're going to have to memorize them for what's coming
We
next.
had like I to the 37.
Okay, good question. If we have I to the 37th, okay, we need to know what I to the 37th. Now remember what I said, it repeats itself, right?
Maybe I, right?
So let's think here. Hold on just a sec. I to the 37th, how many times does 4 go into 37?
0.
4. So look, how many traces are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes into it 9 times with a remainder of what?
R dot 3. Yeah.
Just 1, right? So you got to think about it. Look, pay attention, pay attention. 4 goes into 37, 36, right? It goes into 36. 37 subtract 36 is 1. So technically it would have a remainder of 1. Now, that would mean I to the 37th is the exact same thing as I to the 1, which is just I. Okay, whatever your remainder is. So let's do another one. Here, let me find them here. So I can... I to the 31st. So 4 goes into 34 how many times? 7 with a remainder of... It'd be 3, right? So the remainder would be 3, so it'd be negative I. What about I to the 40th? It goes in evenly, right? So if it goes in evenly, it's just going to be 1. This one over here. If the remainder is 0, it's going to be that one right there, because that's the even one. What about I to the 63rd? Sorry, I to the 63rd. Hold on, so it's I cubed, because 4 goes into 60 15 times, which gives us a remainder of 3, so negative I. Okay? Does that make sense how you do
You
that?
just always divide by 4 and then whatever the remainder is.
Yep, you just divide by 4, whatever the remainder is. If the remainder is 0, it's 1.
So if it had a remainder of 4, it would just be the 1.
Never going to have a remainder of 4. Because it would go into it if there's a remainder of 4. That's why I added the zeros this one.
Don't worry, guys.
We got there. Proud of you. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, here we go. I need a new piece of paper. I got rid of my yellow paper. All right. Okay, we got to talk about how we add them, and I'm only going to do a couple of these, so this shouldn't take us too long. All right, this one has an important thing in it, though. Complex numbers always should be written a certain way. First off, if we were given these two problems, and it says to simplify it, we're just going to combine like terms. 5 and 2 make 7. Negative 7 and 4 make negative 3i. That would be your answer to this. All you're doing is just combining like terms. But this is very important, and everyone listen. Anytime you're given numbers like this is in the form a plus bi. Complex numbers have to be written a plus bi. Now look, there can be a minus here, that's fine. But it has to be written a plus minus whatever it is, bi. So the I comes last, the constant comes here. So once again, if I had 4 minus 8i plus 6 minus 2i, we would combine our like terms to make 10 minus 10i. And it has to be written in that form. Negative 10i plus 10 is wrong. Complex numbers have to be written in this form. Everyone's a real big stickler about this. Daxton, no, what about if I had this? What about if I had 4 plus 6i minus 1 minus 2i? What do I do now? What do you think?
Distribute the negative.
You have to. Yep, drilled it. This is the exact same thing as like combining quadratics when we did that. You have to first distribute through this negative, and you get 4 plus 6i minus 1 plus 2i. You have to, anytime there's a minus sign between parentheses, you have to distribute through that negative. Just like we've done a few times already this year, you have to do that. So that becomes 3 plus 8i. And that's combining them. Does that make sense? Easy? Okay, we got to cover one more thing. I'm not going to take any more time on that. I think that part's pretty easy. We're going to solve our first equation dealing with these when you have I involved. All right, so here we go. Everyone ready? If we have x squared plus 64 equals 0. Okay, in order to solve this equation, we have to get x alone. So how do we get x alone? What do we have to do first? Minus 64 from both sides, which is going to give us x squared equals negative 64. Okay, we have to square. Now something, we got to remember something, and I'm not going to let Andy answer this because he might know. When you square root two sides of an equation, what comes with it? Something comes with it. When you square root, when you square root two sides of an equation, something comes with it right here. Think about the quadratic formula.
Square root
Anytime you square root two sides of an equation, both sides, a plus or minus has to come with it. Now that you know it's a plus or minus, why is there a plus and a minus? Because there has to be two answers. Why does there have to be two answers? Because it's squared.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, now look though, we're not done yet. What's the square root of a negative? I. What's the square root of 64?
8.
So we're going to have x equals plus or minus 8i. And that's your solution. I'm sure Alex will make you write 8i and negative 8i, but that would be your solution. Okay, what about if we had this? 4x squared plus 100 equals 0. Are you off, Alex? Cool. Okay, I'm going to get on. I'm going to see what kind of problems they have. Hey, go through and solve that one. While I pull open Alex real quick.
Because it's
Think about it. You got to get the variable alone.
okay, no, that's okay. Oh,
Ooh. Just barely saw something, and it is not nice. But I think I have to cover it now, or we'll get screwed if I don't do it now, because I want to time tomorrow. Okay. So we're going to subtract 100, divide by 4 to get that. Does everyone agree with me? We're going to square root both sides. We're going to get x equals plus or minus 5i. Who got that one right? Good. Okay, we actually have to cover one more thing, and the reason why is because it's making us. So, there's no way on earth I could teach both things in one day. If I have this, and I'm going to call on somebody to help me out here, through the entire problem, you ready, Daxton?
I guess.
You're always ready.
I'm up already.
Okay, Daxton.
So we boil it.
Why would we FOIL this?
Like
Yeah, two binomials. Okay, go. Let's do it.
so it's 18,
So negative 6 times negative 3, which is 18.
negative 12i,
Negative 12i, good.
and negative 18i, and then
Negative 18i
12i squared.
plus 12i squared. Okay, did he FOIL right? Absolutely right. Okay, what would you do next?
And negative 12i squared and combine like terms.
So he's saying we're going to combine together like terms, so make negative 30i in the middle. And he's saying because there's an I squared, that's going to become a negative 12. Okay, Daxton, we're to here. Now what?
Yeah. Got that. So you combine 18.
Yep, and there's your solution. Perfect. Combine like terms. Now, let me ask you a question, Daxton Jones. Can I put that as my answer?
No, you don't.
Absolutely not.
Oh, it's 8 plus B.
Yep. So it has to be written like this. Okay. Your homework's going to be a smorgasbord of all kinds of good stuff. What time do we get out of here? Well, we got time.
48. Just give us like one of each of the problems.
How about 17? I haven't even opened it yet. How about 14?
And the recording. That's it.
How about 17?
Yeah, that works.
No.